Britain and France have agreed to work with Ukraine on halting hostilities in the country's three-year full-scale war with Russia.
And President Putin was very, very flexible in his thinking, released him, and I think it was a huge signal to President Trump that he wants to get a deal done.
Weaknesses, and they both have strengths, and within 24 hours that war will be settled. It'll be over. It'll be absolutely over.
Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I don't think in terms of winning.
Birliğinin ve birliğe yön veren ülkelerin yanlışta ısrar etmekten.
You might have no idea, but the world is changing very fast. Russia and China thought they had it all figured out. They believed Ukraine would fall, the West would crumble, and the U.S. would lose interest. But they never saw this coming. Under Donald Trump's shifting stance, even the United States can't stop what's about to unfold. The EU, UK, Turkey, France, and NATO are coming forward by making bold, unprecedented moves that could change the future of this war forever. And it might just be the ultimate checkmate. Britain and France are discussing deploying troops to monitor a ceasefire in Ukraine post-peace deal, while Washington refuses to send Americans. Russia has rejected NATO member forces, and discussions on a Turkish deployment remain conceptual. But before we proceed, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We break down global events like no one else, cutting through the noise to bring you the real story. Let's get started. Trump turns his back on Ukraine. Donald Trump, the man who once armed Ukraine against Russian aggression, has flipped the script. He's publicly questioned sending further aid, claimed he could end the war in 24 hours, and even suggested Ukraine should give up land to make peace. His rhetoric has sent shockwaves through NATO allies, leaving many wondering, can the U.S. still be trusted to lead, or is it time for Europe to take matters into its own hands?
If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours.
How would you
The problem? No one, not Ukraine, not Europe, and certainly not Putin, believes that for a second. Trump's unpredictability has put NATO on edge. His return to the White House, will Ukraine lose its strongest ally? Russia and China's missed checkmate. Ukraine didn't collapse. Instead, its military and civilians put up fierce resistance, holding key cities and even reclaiming territory. NATO, instead of backing down, expanded its presence in Eastern Europe, reinforcing borders and fast-tracking Finland and Sweden into the alliance. The West imposed crippling sanctions, cutting Russia off from global financial systems, slashing its energy revenue, and forcing Moscow to rely on inferior military supplies from North Korea and Iran. China's support for Russia in Ukraine's conflict with the West is seen as investing in Putin's Russia, as it cannot afford for Putin to fail. The war ties up U.S. and European resources, so China has little interest in a swift end. Russia's alliance with China has been positive, with China providing economic support crucial for the Kremlin. China's support for Russia in the Ukraine conflict has been seen as an investment in Putin's Russia, as it cannot afford for Putin to fail, which would threaten the stability of the anti-Western regime in Russia. The war has become a test of China's alliance with Russia, with the positive outcome encouraging the Kremlin to extend cooperation and build a new international order. However, China was surprised by Ukraine's resistance and the transformation of the conflict into a prolonged conventional war. This created challenges for China, including negative impacts on its relations with the West, U.S. sanctions, and concerns about Russia's expansion of the war. China has adopted a dual strategy, combining tangible support with rhetoric to create the impression of distancing itself from Russia while projecting a facade of neutrality. The primary goal is to help the Russian economy withstand Western sanctions and ensure the Kremlin can sustain its war effort. China has also undertaken initiatives to establish red lines for Russia's actions, such as expressing support for Kazakhstan's independence and reaffirming its opposition to nuclear weapons. Now, China is forced into an uncomfortable position. Their no-limits partnership with Russia is now a liability. While they publicly support Putin, they have avoided full military assistance, fearing secondary sanctions that could crush their own economy. They're watching their biggest ally struggle to hold ground, realizing that a miscalculated move in Taiwan could trigger a similar Western response against them. Their dream of a quick victory has turned into a drawn-out nightmare. And now, Europe isn't just standing back, they're taking charge. NATO and Europe stand tall, while Washington has clearly and stubbornly stated that it would not send Americans. Britain and France, the two largest military powers in Europe, have already considered sending troops in a possible force to oversee a ceasefire in Ukraine, following a future peace agreement. Now, the big thing is the EU and NATO allies aren't waiting for the US anymore. They've pumped billions into Ukraine's defenses, sent advanced weaponry, and pushed sanctions that are suffocating the Russian economy. France, the UK, Germany, and Poland have doubled down on their commitment. They see the bigger picture and know very well that Europe is next if Ukraine falls. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, has declared that an accord has been established with Kiev, facilitating the provision of £1.6 billion, equivalent to $2 billion, for the acquisition of 5,000 air defense missiles for Ukraine. The support from the United Kingdom extended beyond this, as it also declared its intention to furnish Ukraine with a loan amounting to £2.26 billion, equivalent to $2.84 billion, secured by frozen Russian assets. A total of $19.4 billion will come from France, Germany, and Italy. The remainder, about $10 billion, will be divided, with Canada contributing $3.7 billion, with $3.07 billion from Japan and $2.8 billion from the UK in loan finance. The European Union's vital assistance is giving Ukraine new hope. Norway and the European Union have agreed to give Ukraine a record-breaking $1.7 trillion in aid. Norway's position in the war has reached a new height due to this significant decision to defend Ukraine, which has struck a chord with the international community. Macron said he knew Putin might be unfaithful because he had been unfaithful himself when he ignored the Minsk agreements with France, Germany, and Ukraine after the 2014 invasion of Crimea. The discovery of Russia's plans to continue its war against Europe in the future, provided a hasty peace agreement in Ukraine is signed, he continued, explaining Thursday's heated reactions in Moscow. The fact that we're exposing his game probably piqued his interest, Macron stated. Macron said France and other European nations have fought with U.S. forces in Afghanistan after 9/11 in response to a query about Trump's remarks about whether France would defend the U.S. if it were attacked. But there's one unexpected player who might take this war to the next level: Turkey. Turkey's big move. Turkey has played both sides for years. They've bought weapons from Russia, but they're a key NATO member. They've balanced diplomacy, but now things are changing. Reports suggest Turkey might be considering sending troops to Ukraine. If that happens, it could be a game changer. Why? Because Turkey has one of the largest and most capable armies in NATO. Their involvement would send a loud and clear message to Russia. The West is done playing defense. The source emphasized that a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine would have to be announced before Turkey could send troops, and that non-combatant battalions should be sent in to monitor the truce. According to Turkish media this week, during separate talks in Ankara last month, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky discussed a potential deployment with President Tayyip Erdogan. Despite being Moscow's longtime adversary, Turkey has remained friendly with both Russia and Ukraine during their conflict, supporting troops who have vanquished Russia's allies in Syria and Azerbaijan since 2023. This move would push NATO's role in Ukraine to a whole new level. And Putin? He wouldn't be able to ignore it. The potential outcomes. So, what happens next? Here are the possible outcomes. 1. Russia backs down, forced into a negotiated settlement that actually favors Ukraine. 2. Turkey's involvement escalates the war, forcing NATO into an even deeper military commitment. 3. China rethinks its alliance with Russia, seeing the war as a costly mistake. 4. Trump returns to office and pulls the U.S. back, leaving Europe to lead the charge alone. One thing is certain, the world is at a turning point, and no matter what happens next, Russia's plan has already failed. They thought they could divide the West. Instead, they've only made it stronger. What do you think? Will Europe and NATO take the lead while the U.S. steps back? Will Turkey send troops and change the course of the war? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into world events.